Senator Scott Dibble is the ranking minority member of the Transportation Committee and a member of the Environment Committee. He now joins me to offer his perspective on whether the state should adopt California's clean car standard. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Shannon.
Based on your comments in committee as well as previous conversations that we've had here on this program, I'm assuming that you are in favor of the adoption of California's emission standards here in Minnesota. Why is this a good move?
Well, there are a few reasons. Probably the first and foremost is that we know that manufacturers are not bringing fully half of their low emission and electric vehicles to Minnesota, the models that are out there right now available on the market. And so we should be giving Minnesotans a full choice. Many of my constituents, and I know from the experience of a lot of others, that they have a really hard time going to their dealers and finding the cars that they want, forcing them to go to other states or just go without. Minnesotans, I think, deserve to be able to save money on their fuel costs. Electricity is pennies on the dollar in comparison to fuel costs, and of course low emission vehicles or low fuel vehicles also would be a tremendous savings. We also know that we have this issue of climate change and the climate crisis that is coming faster than anyone thought. We have to do far more faster than we ever thought before. And we've actually done a pretty good job in the electrical energy sector, which we talk about a lot, coal and the other fossil fuels that generate our electrical sources, going to clean renewable sources. We're actually going down in our carbon contribution from that sector. We're going up in the transportation sector. And it now contributes more than electrical energy generation. And we also know that pollution from cars has a tremendously negative consequence on Minnesotans' health. Fully 5 to 15% of all emergency room visits for respiratory ailments are attributable to the air we breathe, and many thousands of Minnesotans die from premature death from the dirty air that they're breathing. The Department of Health just came out with shocking numbers of folks who get sick or actually lose their fight with their illness because of particulates and ozone. We have these ozone days, we have these particulate days, you're not supposed to go running, and much of that is from mobile sources of pollution coming from our cars.
So this would cut down on that. Some auto dealers have testified, though, that this rule change, which it dictates that they have to bring in different cars than they maybe would choose to, that this is an overreacher and puts an unfair burden on them. Do they have a case?
I don't think so. One thing to keep in mind is that this was the direction the whole country was going. This is under the California standard. California had done the research and established the metrics and the schedule and all that. But the EPA, under the Obama administration, had kind of taken that as a whole, and the whole country was moving in that direction. And so manufacturers and the market was getting ready for that change. It was only after the current president was elected and there was a huge war on those standards by the oil companies and the Koch brothers that then the current administration reversed course. And so now we have fully 14 states that are coming together to adopt these standards moving forward as the federal law allows them to do. And we've seen a lot of claims of impacts. None of it is supported by evidence, the experience of other states. And it's really not the dealers that bear the burden; it's the manufacturers. And if they can't meet, if they can't, sell or don't want to sell the mix of low emission or zero emission vehicles, they can just pay a little fee and buy a credit for that purpose.
Electric cars may be better for the environment in terms of air quality, one of the points that you're making, but concerns were raised in committee about the semi-precious metals and the other ingredients that go into manufacturing these batteries. Currently, the mining, the manufacturing is happening often in other countries with child labor, lower if or no environmental regulations. Does this concern you?
Well, certainly the environmental consequences of mining is very concerning. And I think this is a somewhat separate conversation from whether or not we should do clean car standards. It's been raised in these committees and seems to be a bit of a distraction and kind of someone else's agenda coming in to try to impact.
Well, it's the copper nickel mining trying to bring that in.
Yeah,
I mean, some have said that Minnesota has, even DFL Senator Tomassoni has said, Minnesota has these metals. Shouldn't we be Couldn't we kill two birds with one stone, say?
Well, I look forward to his vote for the clean car standard if that's the case. But also one thing that people should know is that a lot of this conversation is around cobalt, that is actually not a rare earth metal, but is mined in a lot of these places you described. Future new batteries are not being manufactured with cobalt. So to the extent that cobalt is an issue, which is a big part of this conversation, that going forward is not going to be the issue.
You feel like this argument is a bit of a red herring?
It's a distraction, yeah. I mean, we can have the conversation about whether or not copper nickel mining is a good idea in Minnesota. It doesn't really impinge on the clean car conversation.
So the Environment Committee last week, the Senate Environment Committee, approved a bill that would remove the rulemaking authority from the Pollution Control Agency, which is how this action is being done. Critics are saying the agency is moving too quickly, that the legislature should be the one to decide on these clean car standards, not the Pollution Control Agency. What's your perspective on that?
Well, actually, the bill would eliminate the Pollution Control Agency's ability to have any control or say over pollution from vehicles. So it's a really radical bill. It's a very drastic measure. It's not just about rule writing. It's about removing a whole section of control and regulation over one of the most polluting things that we have in our state, which is the vehicle sector. So it's pretty radical and pretty dramatic. But that also, I think, when you can't win on the arguments, you start arguing the process. The legislature always has the prerogative to limit the Pollution Control Agency's authority. I think the bill itself speaks against the author's underlying premise of what exactly is going on with the agency. But they also have the ability to remove rule writing authority, amend any rule, repeal any rule. And so, the legislature's prerogatives are not being impinged whatsoever. Clear statutory authority by the Pollution Control Agency to regulate and make sure our air is clean, specifically from vehicles, in addition to all the other sources that they have the authority to do. They're just simply acting with the authority that they have. The legislature can then have the conversation that we're having in committee and see if they can get a bill passed.
One final question. Would you like to see the legislature move to provide tax incentives for Minnesotans to purchase the low-emission vehicles and zero-emission vehicles? Would you like to see that incentivized?
Possibly. I haven't totally made up my mind on that. I would really have to understand. The reason we do tax incentives is to goose the market a little bit, and I think setting the clean car standards actually will create the market conditions that send the signal, and so the manufacturers will bring all those models here. The other thing that'll happen is that the manufacturers of the vehicle charging infrastructure also will know that the market conditions are such that they can come and start building out charging stations all over our communities and in places that people need to drive, so they don't have what's called range anxiety, so they don't get nervous about driving their car to some town all the way on the other side of Minnesota.
Senator Dibble, thank you for your perspective.
Great. Thank you, Shannon.